Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Mark Allen with Gaper.io, and I'm here today with Jack Findley, the COO of Decision Engines. Good afternoon, Jack, or good evening in your case.
Yes. Good afternoon, Mark.
Hey, so can you start with a brief background of yourself and your work experience?
Sure. Right now with Decision Technologies Corporation, I'm the CEO and CFO. Our technology company has a couple of patents that we're working on that is currently used in the financial industry. And rather than get too far down that rabbit hole, because then we'll be talking about how amazing that is. I'm also a CFO consultant with Tier 1 Services, which is a remote outsource accountancy and CFO firm based out of Florida, but we're all over the country, and we serve our clients all over the country. And then the other company that I'm working with right now is Ripples, which is another patented technology company, which is in very early stages of startup. And so I'm helping guide operations and finances with them as well. I've been in operations and finance for the better part of the last 25 years, and always with numbers and processes. And it's kind of where my wheelhouse of my interests and my talents seem to fall.
Yeah, so it's safe to assume that you're a busy man right now.
I am. Yeah.
That's good. Good. So can you tell us your experience with remote employment as both an employer and an employee?
Sure. My I was thinking about it as we were planning this call, and I think that I pretty much know the month that I started working remotely. And that was it was March of 1999. So I've been working remotely to, almost 100% of that time. And back then I owned a small shop in the Detroit area, and I had 20 employees and a couple $1 million in revenue and 3 kids at home in diapers. And so I was the phone company, GT at the time, connected T1 or whatever they called it at the time, directly from my house to my shop, and I could control all the computer systems and security and everything from home. And I did the accounting and the planning and the estimation and client management work for my home office, as well as and it was only a couple miles away from my shop. So, but at that time of life, it was very appropriate, and I could be home a lot more with 3 kids. And then it's been pretty much the same. I've been in this home office here for the better part of the last 8 years. And there's a lot more to it here, even though it's at home. I rely on whiteboards, always have, as well as Asana and other planning and project management tools. So that's, I can get into the nitty-gritty details about different operations that I worked for or ran myself, but I've been working with people remotely since then. And there's a lot of thoughts that I have about that in regards to how the marketplace has changed and how the landscape has changed, because things have changed quite a bit over that time.
Yes. Well, why don't you share some of your takeaway and your experiences from as an employer, since obviously it's been a benefit as an employee.
Yeah. So as an employer, I mean, the greater challenge or the onus is on us to provide our employees with the tools and the connectivity so that they can be successful at that role that they're assigned to, or that which they're dedicated to, and as well as support their morale, their engagement, and involvement in the operations, as opposed to sitting across the hall or down the way, where there's a direct accountability with somebody walking up to their desk or into their office or whatever at that time. It's a very different environment. Not everybody has the same home environment or home office environment or remote place that they can work, that provides them with the solitude, the ability to concentrate or focus, and get the work done that they need to do. So, technology aside, which needs to be a given, of course, assuming that we're providing the technology. So I think the greatest challenge is setting up processes and schedules to have good communication, or just lots of communication.
Hmm.
You know, meetings at the office were always a problem. Really, we got to have 15 people in this meeting, right? You
Hmm.
know, I mean, for
Yes.
how long? But I think to have those meetings with remote workers on a regular basis is actually important.
Hmm.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah, I
yeah.
think more so than being in the office, because
Yes.
a lot of times you notice because I've worked in an office, and a lot of times the beginning of those meetings are kind of fluffy, like the first 10, 15 minutes. And
Yeah.
unless you have someone that really is a taskmaster, I've worked at companies where have meetings to talk about when they're going to have their next meeting. So you tend not to do that when you're remote.
Yeah.
So what do you think is the future of remote employment, and what do you think can be done to make it more effective, since you're an old pro at it?
Yeah. Well, that's a great question. Got lots of thoughts on that, but I mean, for really obvious reasons, a lot of people are all of a sudden working remotely,
Hmm.
and you know, the value and respect for that function or the necessity of working from home, as well as the actually doing it. Um, I think it's directly comparable to what we're seeing a lot on social media from people who are now expressing a lot of appreciation for teachers, because now their children are home and they're doing homeschooling and right smack in the middle of the school year. You know, teachers should be paid $1 million. It's
Hmm.
all over the internet, right?
Hmm.
Well, I think the workplaces or American, you know, businesses and probably foreign businesses as well are now all of a sudden have a level of respect for people that work remotely or the function of remote work. So I've been professing, and at Tier 1 Services, an outsourced accounting, you know, firm, we set up processes and we work remotely entirely in the accounting function. So we've been, you know, encouraging our, you know, clients and other people and putting on training sessions on how to do this for a long time. It's not new. And now all of a
Hmm.
sudden there's a lot of noise about how to do this. And of course, a lot of people were caught flat-footed. But I think the future is that we're going to see a pretty substantial percentage of the workforce never go back to the office.
Hmm.
They shouldn't have been at the office to begin with.
Yep.
So we had, you know, corporate managers who had the illusion of control and productivity by keeping people in the workplace.
Hmm.
And so they were kind of in denial, to say the least, about losing that control because they didn't know how to do it. You know,
Hmm.
for those companies that had already been incrementally putting certain departments in a remote role, or letting their employees work 2 or 3 days from home or remotely, that kind of thing, they were already kind of warming up to the requirements for any one employee to go remote. So it's not a strange thing, but that's not a majority of companies. You know, we're talking about, you know, in the bell curve of this,
Yeah.
the late majority is a really sharp curve because of what the forced, you know, the forced activity to start working from home.
Yeah, no, I agree. And I think it was trending this way.
Yeah.
But I think it just took the proverbial hockey stick curve up in
Yep.
the last week. And I think people are going to get used to it and enjoy it.
Yeah.
So it's almost going to be unusual for companies not to offer it.
It would be, yeah, hard. I think companies would be hard pressed to justify
Yes,
that.
I agree. I mean,
And
obviously, there's some positions that have to be in the office, like waiters and waitresses is an obvious one, but you know what I mean.
yeah, but that's changed too.
Yeah, it
You know,
has.
I mean, if we think about restaurants that weren't offering takeout or didn't have a takeout bar or a
They do now.
walk-in pickup or delivery function, fine dining restaurants in particular. I have a couple of kids that are in college and they work at fine dining restaurants in the Ann Arbor area. And all of a sudden they're without work. And it occurred to me, I said, wait a second, they could be serving people right off. I mean, I know the restaurants,
Yeah,
they just
yeah,
weren't ready for it from a
yeah.
strategic, you know,
Yeah.
standpoint. Yeah.
And I think we're going to be here for another month, so I think people are going to get even more used to it. Yeah.
Yes.
So what's the story behind Decision Engines, and what's the journey been like?
uh, related to remote work or
No, just
otherwise?
in general.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah, you just tell us
So
a little bit about Decision Engines, what you guys do, and stuff like that.
sure. So our technology is based on the seed question, or the core question is when faced with too much information and too many choices, which choice is best for me?
Hmm.
So Eric Smith, one of the founders of the company, and the names on the patents that we have created had been an estate planning attorney who was advising clients, wealthy clients, what to do with their, for their estates. And he would always have to refer them to an investment advisor on how to invest their money in for that part of the plan. And his clients would come back and say, all right, what do you think of these choices? He's like, I have no way, any better way to evaluate the recommendations of your investment advisor than you do. And so, he kind of relegated that to background processing for a number of years, and began to reveal itself that the data that was available that investment advisors had to choose from to make recommendations for their clients was just too much information for even a qualified and experienced and seasoned investment advisor who might have their own spreadsheets and mechanisms for, sorting through things. There's just too many factors. Mm-hmm. And so our decision engine, as we affectionately call it, is a technology which takes all of that data and weights and scores the various factors, and over 300 factors in the case of mutual funds, for example, where we can weight and score preferences to the investors, mm-hmm. interests in regards to risk and return, and another 300 factors. And so that delivers a composite score for all the available, funds in a particular asset class, and effectively reveals to the investor, the investment advisor, or anybody that's interested in the information, maybe a portfolio designer would have this interest as well, what the top 10, or, they can really score and rank all 357 in an asset class, all 195, all 580. Mm-hmm. Now, if they already have an investment, we can plug that in, and it ranks, it compares the existing investment with all of the other, funds in that asset class, and compares managers and scores and ranks. And that way they can make the evaluation or the choice whether their money is in the right place for their interests and their preferences. So that's what our technology basically does at a very simple level. The applications are tremendous in working with 401ks and municipal retirement funds, which we could get into for another 13-week course and talk about, right? But we've only got a couple minutes, and I appreciate you listening. So that application is also functional wherever there's too much information, too many choices. For example, online automotive shopping. Mm-hmm. We've all shopped for a car on Auto Trader or Cars.com, and when it comes down to it, you're still making this kind of like judgment about whether it doesn't matter silver or blue. I don't really care about that, but this one's all-wheel drive. That one's all-wheel drive with leather. We start, doing this mental weighting and preferencing, and then we walk away from it for a couple of weeks, right? Because we weren't able to express our desires or interests well enough to this on and off filter website. And that's true with consumer goods. This is true in fantasy sports, horse handicapping, dating, online dating, for example. So wherever there's a lot of information and too many things to consider in our brief attention span, or even a long attention span, our technology can be used to input that data from that industry or that field of interest, and the user can express their preferences in any number of ways related to those factors, and the output is a ranked scoring of all of the possible choices that they might be able to make. And wow. So right now we're actively involved in promoting and enrolling investment advisory firms, portfolio firms, 401k review activities with law firms and municipalities, and working on a couple of other industry startup joint ventures with folks in these other industries that I mentioned.
Wow, that's really cool. So it's a form of AI that can be basically applied to many different disciplines, correct?
It's true. And to be precise, it's not AI because it doesn't learn anything.
Okay.
Input and output, but input, manipulation, and output, but it can be matched with AI because AI can take the individual shoppers or buyers' choices. It can make recommendations. Facebook knows everything about everybody that's on Facebook, and they can take that massive amount of data, plug it into our engine, and make a recommendation to the Facebook user based on what we know about you, which is a lot.
Yeah, a lot. No, yeah.
We recommend that you buy this product.
Now that people are on the internet more, they're going to have even more information.
Yeah.
So how did you incorporate the idea of remote working at your company?
Good. I guess to a great extent, there was a couple of events that required reorganization or repositioning of the company, both physically and structurally. So we have been working remotely for some time, and because we're kind of geographically spread out in the Detroit area, and everybody's got anywhere from a 30-minute to an hour and a half drive to our office in Troy. So depending on the necessity to have workshop type meetings where whiteboards and a lot of phone calls are involved, or even group Zoom meetings, we don't need to go there. Yeah.
Cool. So, I mean, obviously the current situation has forced pretty much the world to go remote in a very short time. Have you I mean, obviously you were ready for it, but have you dealt with any of your customers or any partners that you deal with that have had some major roadblocks and challenges because of this?
Absolutely. Yeah. So aside from what we've been talking about of the kind of the shock or the transition of having a whole workforce go home and then try to figure that out, right? That's very disruptive. Last couple of weeks has been very disruptive in that way. And of course, the news headlines disrupted even more. But the direct impact on any number of our clients. So it's important that I sort out those where that kind of remote, disbursement has caused the disruption. I can think of a couple of businesses right away whose, for example, one of my clients, as I'm the CFO it's a tech startup firm, and it's an app. And without giving away too many details about that, about the identity of the company, the app relies entirely on consumers and service providers in the marketplace. It requires the consumer scheduling an appointment with a service provider and going to the service provider. And all of those service providers are, guess what? Non-essential.
Yeah.
So that now the consumers can't go out of the house to go to non-essential services, completely brought the business to a halt, to a complete halt. And so it was already in a tough startup stage. And so we're going to be working through that over the next 6 months.
I wish them luck. I know there's a lot of companies in that boat, and it's unfortunate for all of them. So there are companies like Gaper that help develop, build, and scale products, especially for startups. How important do you think this will be in the future with CIOs and CFOs and people like that are looking to hire people? The real question is quality people, and they need them now. They can't wait 2 or 3 months. So how important do you think this will be?
Well, aside from my feeling or belief that it's always been important, I think it's going to be the visibility of or necessity for that is increasing rapidly, and the awareness of technology and process and ingenuity has provided the ability to do that more efficiently and more effectively. The marketplace's acceptance of this type of service, in particular remote and outsourcing in general, is rapidly increasing. You might have thought that it had been common knowledge 10 years ago, but it was just, and even now we still have in face of what we're experiencing now, there's still going to be people that are resistant to it. But I think this could be a tremendous catalyst for that functionality across any number of different industries.
Yeah, and I think the real thing is once people realize that they can hire remote employers, then it's not so important that they're in the same city.
Yes.
Which I think is going to be a major catalyst too, because especially in cities like New York and San Francisco, where the cost of such employees is so high, that people are going to say, hey, I can get that cheaper in Alabama or places like that, or other countries.
And, from the workforce standpoint, I mean, think about this. I just saw an article how people are running for the hills right now to get out of the cities because of the coronavirus. Well, if now we get to work remotely, why do we have to be in the city?
Right.
And, to be close to the finance firms or, Fifth Avenue or whatever. And so this is really going to fill the countryside, with new houses over the next few years.
I would think so. It'd be interesting to see what happens to LA and New York and even
Yeah.
San Francisco, because
Yeah.
yeah, I am anxiously awaiting to see what happens. So
Yeah.
let's see. I have 2 kids in the workforce. It'll be interesting to see because my son lives in New York, so it'll be interesting to see if he stays there. So
Yeah.
well, Jack, it's been great talking to you today. I want to thank you for your time. Wish you luck in all of your ventures, of the many ventures you're involved in. So
thank you, Mark. It's been a pleasure talking to you, and I wish you the best of luck too, and the best of health.
well, thank you. Yeah, you too. And thank you very much. And we'll be in touch.
All right. Talk to you soon.